Welcome to another Tech Hour with Kevin and Pat. My name is Kevin.
And I'm Patrick, and on this show, we are learning everything we need to about our new smart home industry and every vendor that we can get our hands on. And today we have Dennis Holzer. He is the director of the Powerhouse Alliance. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us. So I guess we're just going to get started here, just about an intro, just about yourself and what your role is, things of that nature. Just want to pause for a minute and let you guys know how we're making these podcasts. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let us explain.
So there's certain tools that allow you to create and record and edit your podcast from your phone or computer. It's super convenient.
Yeah, and it's also free, so absolutely no cost to anything at all.
Exactly. And Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so it could be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, it'll be there for you.
Yeah, plus you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership.
It's literally everything that you need to make a podcast in one place. So download this app on Anchor. It's free on Anchor FM go to Anchor FM to click to get started.
Okay. Well, I have been in the industry for 39 years.
Wow.
Up until 2008, I owned my own independent wholesale distributorship. We had fewer divisions than a lot of the distributors today, but the division I cut my teeth on throughout most of that time was electronics. And I sold the company in 2008 and swore I'd get out of this business and never get back in it. And I don't know what happened, but I drank the Kool-Aid and got back in the business as the executive director of Powerhouse in 2009. And Powerhouse today is a lot different than it was then. We had 18 locations back then. Today we have almost 60.
Wow.
We have 11 members, and the members own Powerhouse. And so what each member is territorially bound. And our first and foremost is to distribute electronic products to the integrator. And the categories that Powerhouse sells is anything in a home theater environment, residential security, networking, and light commercial. So if you're a dealer, and we only sell business to business, but if you're a dealer and you walk in any of our locations and you're building a home theater, you can get everything in our location to put together a whole home theater, from the TV to the wire to the speakers to the audio, etc.
One-stop shop.
Yeah, one-stop shop, exactly. And as I said, we do that in 60 plus locations around the country. And probably 80% of our dealers drive a white van with no name on them. You're not going to go to the yellow pages and look up installer and see them there. Yet these are very talented people who go into people's homes and sell the product. We sell very few retailers. As I said, we specialize in the integrator. So,
right.
And that's the umbrella of Powerhouse. And my job at Powerhouse is to bring lines to the group that all members can purchase, so that we can fulfill what I said, a complete home theater should you need any product in that category, networking, like commercial, or residential security.
Okay, and I understand you guys have an in-house brand called A to V too, correct?
We also have our own brand of A to V, and it's more on the service product side of the business. So we have mounts, we have speakers, we have racks, we have HDMI products. None of those products at this time are interactive type products or highly need service products. They're more staples in putting jobs, finishing jobs.
Right. So I guess my first question, you said you only sell business to business. So to walk in, the closest store to me is the UI store. I think it's in New Jersey. What would I need, as, myself, Houston Tool Automation, just to walk in there and, buy. Could I just do that with,
you could do
as
one
myself?
of two things. You could call in advance, and obviously they would get you set up as an account. There's paperwork to fill out. or you can walk in the branch. They have people in the branch that can help you, certainly. All of our branches contain a self-serve element, but before we get to that point, what you do is, if you're not a dealer, you go in, there's paperwork to fill out. There are some brands that require authorization from the factories for us to be able to sell you. So on a few of those brands, you may not be able to pick up the product today, but in a week from now, once we get the approval from the factory, then we would be able to sell you. And what you do is you can go to that location. As I said, most of our locations have a self-serve element where there's 4 or 5 rows. You can go up and down the rows. It's typically, we don't stock a lot of TVs in that area, obviously. They're usually in our bulk warehouse, but you just go in, and it allows installers to grab a cart at the door and go up and down, pick up what they need. Most of the people we sell, they're buying stuff our busiest hours are very early in the morning and very late in the afternoon. And the reason for that is the majority of installers don't stock inventory. So they come to us tonight to pick up goods for tomorrow's job, or tomorrow morning to pick up goods for tomorrow's job. And so you can go grab a cart, go up and down 4 or 5 aisles, get everything you need. And you could typically be out of there, depending on how much stuff you need and whatever. You could be out of there in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 2 hours if you're enthralled. And then what we also do is at the end caps of each of these aisles, that's where we typically display new lines that we've brought in. So it kind of highlights to installers who do business with us, hey, it's on an end cap. It typically means that's a new line that we're offering to our dealers.
It's good to know. Very good to know. Yeah, because as I stand right now, I've only been in business for about 6 months, and one of the hardest things that I've been dealing with is dealing with a client that would need a installation that same day, or that next day. So things like in Amazon, they don't work for that because you need certain proprietary things that just don't work for Prime. So I'm really glad to know that a place like this exists.
Yeah, and you're the kind of dealer that, again, we specialize in. The majority of our dealers are 1, 2, 3, 4-man organizations. Dealers put out bids to their clients, and then the client doesn't call them for 3 months and says, "Hey, I'm ready to do it. Can you install it tomorrow?"
Right.
And so we specialize in those dealers because they can come to us this morning. Well, you can come to us all at any time during the day, and pick up the goods you need for that job. And the majority of products, we have everything in stock. I'd be lying if I said we always stock a pink faceplate or a purple faceplate, but 90% of the general merchandise is typically in stock.
Perfect. Now, do you guys serve just the U.S. or is it North America in general?
It is only the U.S. at this time.
Okay. So for us in Canada, you're not up here currently, is that correct?
There yet.
Okay.
I'll just leave it at that. Yet.
Yes.
Perfect.
Real quick to dovetail onto that, there is I think I saw a branch up in the New England area, all the way up in Maine. Could he, he's only in Nova Scotia. Can he just cross over the country and do something like that, or is that illegal? Just curious.
All of my members are territorially bound, and the majority of lines that we carry are territorially bound lines. So, one of the lines we carry, for example, is Samsung TVs. My guy in Maine can't ship the Samsung TVs to somebody in California and vice versa. He has his pre-described. If you go onto our website, you can see the territory. It's color shaded that every member is responsible for.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Not a problem.
It's a long drive to Maine, Pat. It's a long drive. So we're gonna let's continue there. So in terms of trends, do you guys notice any big trends this year in the home automation field or anything? Or?
Well, obviously in 2020, the COVID thing, it really, we didn't know what to expect. first of all, we didn't know if consumers would let installers in their homes.
Right.
And personally, I didn't think they would, but having been in this industry 39 years, it shows you how wrong someone can be who's been in this industry. Consumers did let people in their homes. Everything in networking and almost anything in networking was a huge, huge hit. Many people that, because they're working from home, were updating their whole networking system, their routers, etc. So that trend continues because obviously most people are still working from home. The television business went through the roof.
Yes, it did.
And Patrick, you're an installer, but the one thing I preach to installers and we are, to be blunt, our installers don't do a good job of this. The best customer you can get is typically a customer you've done something for. And so, as
100%.
During the COVID times, I was begging our installers, you don't need to go back to a consumer's house because you've been there, to give him a virtual estimate. If the guy says, hey, you put this audio system in my house, I want to change a TV that was there. You obviously know what was there. You knew what work you put in. So chances are, and there's some, percentage you may have to go back, but by and large, you remember the guy's house. You knew what kind of work, whether it was an older house, newer house.
Right.
And so you could do a lot of estimates virtually with not having to go to the consumer's house. And then the other thing I would say is that the TV business, going back to trends, if you go back 4 or 5 years, 55, 60, 65 inch was really the premium size TV and cost.
Exactly.
So, and it was a 1080p. So now you move forward 4 or 5 years, the TVs, now you can go up into the 90s. So somebody may have installed a 65 that really would have preferred an 80, but they took the biggest they could get that they could afford. The second thing is you're going from a 1080p to a 4K. Right. And chances are you can install that 72-inch 4K for the price of what a 50 was 3 or 4 years ago. Right. So we've seen a lot of people, because they're home, reinvesting in their home and saying, hey, yeah, I have a 50, I really want a 70, and now I want a 4K, and it's less than what I paid before. Do it. So those are, and there's many other trends, but two of the major trends right now are certainly networking and the TV business. They're booming, and anything, frankly, to add to the network and the TV is the outdoor category of those products.
Yes.
People are home. A lot of people are trying to duplicate their kitchen and their home theater in their back deck. So the outdoor TVs, the outdoor speakers, the outdoor capability of networking from your home. We don't get into this, but outdoor grills and things like that, outdoor kitchens. That business obviously excelled tremendously in 2020 because people are home, and I guess if you want to stay home, at least if the weather's nice, let me go out in the backyard.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it is for COVID. And I just wanted to touch on something like that real quick. As that's really important. Something that you mentioned there, just the simple following up of customers, getting good gauges of, talking to the people you already worked with and finding out, maybe you find a lead, maybe you don't, but either way, they see it as you helping. So I really, that's a good point. It's a good point there. Now, another question I wanted to go is that, you said everything in these different shops like UI Supplies, which is near me. Everything, this goes down to the component level. We're talking a server racks. We're talking you said mounts, you said speakers, you said you even carry some end user devices and stuff like that. Maybe whatever the latest Amazon or Google devices. Do you guys carry things like that, or is it just mainly component level?
Nest products, which are often thought of as DIY products, but a lot of our dealers, I call the consumer a do-it-for-me consumer.
Very true.
He can go to the Home Depot and he sees this cool Nest thermostat, and then he gets home and says,
Where's the C wire?
It's not just something I hang on the wall. I got to hook some wires up to it and things like that. So, yeah, we do sell the Nest products. We do sell the Amazon products. We do sell a lot of the Google products, which owns Nest.
Right.
So we do have those products, but in addition to that, obviously we have plenty more products in the true custom installation field. We do carry the racks that you mentioned, the server racks and things like that.
Very good.
I think we have a 12-inch up to 42 in racks, either KD, or we have the ones that are fully built with dual fan shelves and everything, included.
Oh, wow.
So what we try to do is, as I said, be a one-stop full service shop for all of our integration customers.
Exactly. It's a lot of new construction going on, and a lot of, I just don't want to have the headache of, searching for like, different components on like Newegg, or, I'm just thinking about, stuff off the top of my head, so definitely great to have that. Cool.
All in stock.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess kind of dovetailing on that, is there any trends that you're expecting to see next year, like 2022?
I think that I've been in this industry, as I said, for a long time, and many years ago and up through now, we've heard this word convergence. And I've heard the word convergence over and over and over 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And I think we're now really beginning to enter into the true land of convergence, where so many people control, I'll say their home for lack of a better word, but control their home on their iPad or control their home on their phone.
Right.
So with that control now, we are seeing the convergence of blind shades coming into the picture. Certainly thermostats and lighting coming into the picture. Not as much the home theater, although you can go into your home theater and, control the blinds and do everything you need. But we're seeing a lot of a thrust in the areas of all these products now that are converging, and that can be now controlled on your iPad again, or on your phone, both from within your house or from a distance.
Right.
And I see that trend really, really continuing into next year. There are so many people now that are coming out with all of these gadgets and gadgets, I call them, where you can, you can control the outlet, that single outlet for a lamp in your living room.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, I don't want to say it has any less importance, because there are some people who only care about that one outlet in their living room. So they want to be able to control it, or locks on their front doors. And the internet is helping. It certainly hurts in a lot of areas, but it helps in a lot of areas, because people see all these products, and you poll a lot of people, they don't know that from a phone, you can unlock your front door, lock your front door.
Yeah.
Right.
Sadly, and I say this really sadly, based on yesterday's shooting in
Colorado again,
in Colorado, unfortunately, every time there's a catastrophe like that, people start to understand, because the first thing in the news says is, we're going to the cameras to look and see if we can find who the car was, who the person was, and so, now people are really starting to understand, hey, I can put cameras around my house. And again, from my phone, when I'm not home, I can look at what's going around my house. So I call it surveillance. That's the true name, but it's really too fancy for some people. People say cameras around my house. But I expect that category to continue to excel, specifically, and hopefully not, but when, I harken back to when the Boston Marathon had that shooting, that explosion at the end. Unfortunately, every time we see one of those, our camera sales go through the roof.
You're preaching to a choir. You're preaching to a choir. Yep.
It's just people understand, oh, I can do that. And again, anytime there's a catastrophe, the first thing the newscasters and everybody says is, or the police, we're reviewing the cameras for the information. So that's becoming, there's good to it and there's bad to it. Obviously, yesterday was the bad to it, but it's becoming part of a household name that I can put cameras into my security system. I can control my security system, my front door, my back door from my iPad, and the list goes on and on. And I expect that trend with the addition of many, and again, I'm calling them gadgets. It's unfair to those lines to call them that, but that's what I'm going to call it.
It works. It works.
Yeah, with the addition of all these gadgets, we're going to continue down that road of making our houses more robotic, if you will.
Definitely. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like, it's funny you mentioned that. I started my business. Actually, I literally started my business in Philadelphia. They had a bunch of riots back in June of last year. And my previous company, they basically firebombed the ShopRite that my self-checkouts and my ATMs that I had to deal with were in there. And then from there, I happened to put that cameras were like a side thing that I was doing. But that's been like my bread and butter, and I hate to say it, but it was that tragedy that literally took my business off the ground. And it feels so selfish to say. But it's definitely the case, man. You make a really good point there.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of like the home automation industry in itself, like I know Pat mentioned this in the past too, like it's still a very new thing. It's basically like the internet back in the 90s, right? Like people are still trying to understand what exactly it does and what it is and things of that nature. So,
and look, you don't, I have to laugh and I was even thrown off, but when they talk about the router in your house and you talk about 20 or 30 devices going through that router, the first time I heard that, I said, 20 devices? Who the hell has 20 devices going through the router? Well, all of a sudden, I started thinking, I have a wife and 2 kids. Every one of them has a cell phone. Every one of them has a computer. Every one of them has an iPad. So right there, we're at 12 devices. And you don't think about that. And then obviously at these times, and they're both lawyers, by the way. So now they're working on their computer, they're using their phone, they're doing their iPad. So now you have all these things going through. And then you have their dad who's complaining because of the slowness, of everything. And so that's what happens. People, now that they're home, their regular router from Verizon or everybody was fine. Well, that was because there was only one person using it typically at a time. Now everybody's home. Now all of a sudden everybody's cramming all these devices to it. Now there's streaming going on. Now all of a sudden, why is my router so slow? It was working perfect, 6 months ago. And then they start to get the education. So, and I believe and Patrick, you made mention of it. The majority, not all of them by any means, but the majority of our again, I call them surveillance dealers. It was a sideshow for them. It wasn't their main line of business. They were into installing, and then all of a sudden, security companies were advertising cameras, and a lot of clients started saying to their installer, hey, can you put cameras around the house? You do security, you do all these things. Can you put cameras? And all of a sudden, that segment or that slice of the pie, which was a small one, started to grow and grow and grow. And then you add, unfortunately, these catastrophes to it. And, and even though I'm in this business, I'm a great example. If you'd have asked me 2 or 3 years ago, are you going to put cameras around your house? I'd say no. And by the way, I'm the shoemaker's kid.
Didn't even cross your mind.
Shoemaker's kids always has the worst shoes. And, I was we sell Hike Vision as one of the lines we do for cameras. And I was looking through and I was reading some new cameras that came out. I said, you know what? Well, I have 6 cameras around my house now. My wife can look at them at any time. She's the one that's home most of the time, but she can go to her phone at any time. And so a lot of the no's or I don't think so or why, all of a sudden these circumstances happen. And like I said, your router's working fine until 4 people are using it at the same time all day long. And then you want to know, for a person who doesn't understand the business, what the hell's going on here? Well,
right.
I don't have the proper equipment.
So yeah, that's definitely the first thing that you got to get into. Like once you get into your, we have to talk to our customers about, first of all, upgrading from that factory router. That's definitely key. I've seen that in so many different situations. I've had to hook up a 16 camera system to a router that was 10 years old, and I had to tell this guy like, yo, he's like, So I mean, getting on that. Like, this next question I wanted to dovetail. I wanted to ask, you're a hobbyist besides cameras, like, you've been in the industry for so long. Like me and Kevin has been for about 6 months. He's been doing KPS automation for 6 months. I've been on for about 8 months. What advice would you give to somebody, like we're on the opposite end that where you're at, what advice would you give to like a new installer and, things to, look out for or, ways to sell besides the, besides the cameras and the routers, which is where everything is going? Like, do you see everything going blinds or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of that stuff, but, before you get into the product, the one thing I say to installers is, and it's an old line from President Reagan, just say no. And I say that because often a mistake for young installers is they go to a job and they're so eager to build their business and get jobs, they sometimes take on a job that maybe is a little bit bigger than what they should really do. And or the other side of it is, for some jobs, there's a fine line between residential and commercial. And I see this one often where installers will go in, they'll put a bid into a bar and they'll say, I can use this receiver and I can use this residential TV. And yeah, they can get away with it for a year or so. The problem is a residential TV is not meant to be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. A commercial TV is. And so often we find some young installers getting jobs because they were significantly cheaper, because they didn't put in, they didn't want to, and I'll use the word offend, but that's not the right word. They didn't want to offend the bar owner of something by saying, hey, this is a $12,000 job. Instead, they go in at $8,000 and the bar owner's calling them in the year and saying, what the hell did you do? 2 of my TVs are out. And it was the use of wrong equipment. So,
Exactly.
Yep.
Beyond using wrong equipment, as I said, just say no. If you think the job is too big for you, or a little bit, and I mean just a little bit out of your expertise, you're better off saying no than ruining your reputation.
Very true.
The third thing I find significantly with installers is too often installers don't ask for money at proper times. So then all of a sudden, the job is done, and the consumer says, and certainly these are exceptions to the rule, but they're still exceptions, where the consumer says, yeah, you did that, I don't like it, and you need to fix it. And all of a sudden now he's changed the job that he had you add 2 extra speakers or 3 extra speakers, which may have needed a bigger amp. And so all of a sudden, so I tell for you to know your customer is serious, they've got to give you some money up front, a small amount. Typically there should be 3 payments. There should be one at the beginning to say, hey, and that shouldn't be a major payment. just something to know that they really want you to do the work.
A
A middle
commitment
payment when you
yes.
bring product, and then a final payment when you're done with the job.
Yeah.
And most consumers are prepared to do that. But again, as young installers, you go in, everybody wants to increase their business faster. You want to be cool with the customer. And, it's not some people will say, well, evidently the installer doesn't have money. Well, you can look at me however you want. I'm just looking to make sure that they do it if they're going to have their cement in their driveway fixed. They do it if, they're going to replace a refrigerator. They do it if they're going to redo their kitchen. So it doesn't matter. These are some of the biggest mistakes young installers do. A, trying to cut corners, taking jobs they shouldn't take, and B, not being paid properly in timely fashion.
Right.
So, and
we've talked about that a lot. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And the last thing, we try to do is, and sadly, we haven't been able to do it for a year, but the Powerhouse members really work hard at trying to have one training session per location per month. And obviously they're different at every location. But that's
really?
Yes. And I'm not talking about a generalized training. I'm talking about an in-depth training. So often, again, we see installers, there's no, some installers will argue with me on this, and rightfully so. But, when you approach a job, if the two of you approach the same job, Kevin may have one way to do the job and Patrick may have another way to do the job. And they both could be right.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they both could be wrong. And what happens when you're wrong, it typically means my product is defective, even though it wasn't defective. So,
right.
And the customer reputations that you have online. So what we try to do is work with our installers to make sure that they understand. And I'm not being mean by saying knowing what you're doing, because there's no other than some track homes. You get into a 40 or 50-year-old home, no two 50-year-old homes are the same. Sometimes there was code, sometimes there wasn't code. Sometimes you can take and just fleece a wire right up in the wall. Sometimes you got to make 12 turns, to get there. So, what we try to do is not only let the dealers know about the products, trainings to know what we carry, but trainings on how to do certain installs the correct way. And the other thing, as I'll say that, is talk about networking. We have a lot of installers who, if you go by the rule of thumb, they're not installing the job correctly with access points, every 35 feet or how they should be, but yet they leave and the job, it works. They think they've done the right thing. But if you go by the rule, it's not the right way to do it. So we try to, for as much as for our installers as for us, we all want to learn the right way, because anytime it's a wrong way, and you got to roll a truck back to a house, or you got to redo something, or there's a defective something because of what you did, it costs everybody in the chain money. So if we can help you alleviate some of those things, we've done our job.
Appreciate it. Definitely.
Yeah, no, that's great. Is there anything else you wanted to add about Powerhouse before we add this? Maybe like the website, or if you're on Facebook,
the
Instagram.
Powerhouse website is www.powerhousealliance.com. And you can go on and click on your area, and it'll bring up our member in that area. All of our members have multiple branches in those areas. Like Patrick, you're talking, we have a branch in New Jersey and a branch in Plainview, New York. And it gives you the telephone numbers. You can then go on. It also gives you the websites of those distributors, so you can go online and at least you can see what they have. Obviously, it doesn't allow you into the back end of the website unless you have an established account with that member. But at least you can see the lines they have. And then once you get hooked up as a purchaser from that member, all of our websites have a back end where you can go in, check inventory, check pricing, etc.
Nice.
Okay.
And you can order online at night. So, you can pick it up in the morning, or, we certainly, UPS, there's no place in the country we can't have product UPSed in a day. There are many locations where we're doing same day delivery. And we certainly have a bunch of trucks. Each member has trucks out on the road delivering also.
That's really big.
So, we're here, and my members have all been in business for a good period of time. As an example, my member in Kansas that covers the Mink states, their company just turned 151 years old. So, I lost you there, Kevin.
Wow.
That's big.
Yeah, so 151 years old. All of our companies have been in business at least 25 years. So we're not new to the community, and we are considered a national distributor. But the nice part where we differ from a lot of national distributors is that a national distributor typically has a corporate office and sends out an email. I call it the Target theory. If you've been in one Target store, you've been in all Target stores.
Very true.
In our case, each member caters obviously to the territory they've been in for years. So what my guy does in New England wouldn't work for my guy in California, and California for New England, vice versa.
Okay.
They handle their markets because they understand their markets.
Right. Good to go. Well, thank you. I mean, you really gave us a lot of great knowledge on. I wanted to talk about like the qualifications and the tips that you gave to us as new installers or any new installers. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And by the way, I give that tip to old installers too, who think they can do things that they can't do. So, it's just like I said, at the end of the day, to take on a job just to take on a job that you're not going to do what's right by yourself and by the customer, it just comes back to bite you. And, it's just, and it becomes a costly thing because typically when you put something wrong in, you've got to replace it. Now you got to go back to that customer and say, yeah, I know you put in a 50-watt receiver, but you really needed a 100-watt receiver, and that's $200 more. Right.
Exactly.
So the customer is absolutely right away thinks you screwed them because you're asking them for more money.
Exactly. We really appreciate that, man. I wanted to just reiterate your website. It was powerhousealliance.com. We did glitch out for a second there.
Yeah, www.powerhousealliance.com. If you want to email me directly, it's dholzer, HOLZER at powerhousealliance.com. And again, if you don't like me and you want to bypass me, you can certainly go on my website and go directly to my members in your areas. They're all open. The nice thing is we didn't shut one location, lay off one person during COVID.
Beautiful.
We changed the way we did business, obviously, with social distancing and CDC guidelines, but we were open for business every day. And, we just, for those installers that have never tried us, we're asking them for a chance. We can prove we can do a good job.
I definitely give you a chance, man. Since I got you, man, I'll definitely give you a chance over there in Jersey. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, with that being said, then I am Kevin.
And I'm Patrick, and thanks for joining us on today's episode of Tech Hour with Kevin and Pat. You can see us on YouTube, Instagram, all the major platforms. And Dennis Holzer at the Powerhouse Alliance. I was on his site, a lot of good information and a lot of good link ups to a lot of brands that you would normally have to sort of search out. So good stuff.
Perfect. See you guys in the next one.
All right, man. Thank you so much.